Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Obsidian Mirror, where we pause a moment to reflect. Today I am going to do an Astro First context read, and for those of you who are new here, welcome. This spread is one of 4 that I developed specifically for the channel. I am going to shuffle and get everything into position. Now might be a good time to check in with your body if it feels safe to do so. That could look like intentional breathing of some sort. It could look like wiggling out some excess energy. It could look like dancing a little bit, doing some push-ups or gentle stretching. Whatever you need to do for you right now. I invite you to locate a beverage of choice or a snack. Right now I have coffee. You may also want to find a comfort item, such as a blanket or a stuffy. I want to update you about something that happened this morning. One of the people that I live with here in this community, an elderly woman, fell down this morning. She's okay, all things considered. She was taken to the hospital and is hopefully going to receive care there. And I am going to be keeping her in my thoughts. Keeping my thoughts positive about her recovery, whatever that looks like. And I have already prayed for her. If you are the sort to pray, I'm sure it will be well received on some level. She is also spiritual herself. So if you have anything that you can keep in mind towards her in terms of positive healing and fast recuperation, I think that would I'm sure it would be helpful in some way, maybe not a measurable way, but that's okay. I want to thank you for being here. and listening to her story, as little of it as you have gotten. It is not my place to explain her story, so I'm going to refrain from doing so. And if you have any elders in your life who are struggling right now, I am going to be keeping them in mind and in my prayers today. I may not be able to help physically, but this is something that I can do. If you are someone who is going through a physically challenging time, I am with you. And I hope that you get the care and community that you need. Having mobility challenges can feel quite alienating and distressful and really, really hard for so many reasons. Some which can be explained and some which can only be experienced. So my heart goes out to anyone who is going through that at this time. Before I get into the interpretation, I am going to take a few deep, steadying breaths, and I invite you to join me, starting now. Thank you for joining me if you were able. I'm going to start with the left side, the astrology dice, and what I see as the context of the reading, sort of the weather surrounding the cards. We have the third house, Taurus and Venus. For the third house, we have communication. We also have the words are on the tip of my tongue. We have preliminary schooling, I guess. Here that would be kindergarten through 12th grade. Mandatory schooling, the beginning or base or foundation of an education. There's also potentially siblings and the neighborhood or smaller community in which we live. That could be a house of many people. That could be a community surrounding faith. Perhaps we attend a church nearby. That could also be our town or city or island. It is a close geographical area contained perhaps where we are from originally. With Taurus, we have the second sign of the zodiac, ruled by Venus. It rules, Taurus governs the throat and speech and eating. It is a slow-moving sign. One could say plodding. Taurus likes to go at its own pace. It cannot be rushed or hurried. It is a very, very grounded earth sign who focuses on home environment, on creating comfort, creature comforts in the home environment and probably anywhere it has influence. Think of cultivating a home for the five senses to be at ease, able to relax and be itself, somewhere filled with there's an aura here of, I think of a grandmother's house, like an archetypal grandmother, where you may have experienced at some point in your life coming to grandma's house, perhaps after school, and you can smell the evidence of her love in the home. Home cooking, freshly baked chocolate chip cookies, perhaps a special plateware set that is more decoration than practical. Someone who keeps the space clean and welcoming and warm for visitors. In terms of Venus, the ruler of Taurus and also of Libra, according to traditional astrology, Venus shares a lot of the same significations as the ruler of Taurus. So someone who enjoys a pleasant atmosphere, music, good food. Venus enjoys perfumery and cultivating beautiful things, not just to look at, but also to experience. Venus is very tuned in to the five senses. She also helps us connect with and identify our values, what we hold dear and why. She helps us to do our best to embody those values on a day-to-day. What do I like to have around me? How do I like to speak? And how does that represent what I hold dear? She is sort of the face of our personal value set and helps us to navigate the world accordingly as representatives of our ideals. Venus also rules connection and coming together. So an example of that might be hosting a dinner party and putting on a pleasant experience for guests. Someone who knows how to bring others together and immerse herself in the same experience. Whenever two people come together, the potential for Venus to be there is present, for people to come together and connect in a way that embodies some sort of relational truth. I hope I'm making sense. Some of the things that come to mind or come to heart are more of a feeling, so I am doing my best to find the correct words as I go. I'm going to move on to the possible manifestation. And we have the Ten of Pentacles represented here as Nine Pentacles. I'm going to count them again to make sure, because this is a little bit odd to me. 9 pentacles gathered in a two-dimensional diamond shape on a background of what I believe to be the 10th pentacle, which shows rainbows, a layered rainbow. It is a lovely tapestry. This also makes me think of Venus and Taurus, about the ability to establish oneself on a stable foundation, to have the resources enough to host dinner parties if one is so inclined, without worrying about a budget or anything other than seating arrangements. 10 of Pentacles brings to mind a recent conclusion of a cycle and the ability to begin again from the conclusion of the previous cycle. Perhaps this could look like establishing oneself in a home and being able to pick out furniture for that space specifically, being able to make or find the perfect curtains for every window, to choose flatware and utensils based on taste and not need. Someone who finally feels settled in their home life in some way. This could also be someone settling into a career role in a way that feels satisfying and earned, and there's a sense of having concluded a refinement process and having the ability to move forward in a way that feels capable, confident, and at least a little bit at ease. For the possible expression, we have the Empress in reverse. This is an inner strength, one that is difficult to hide. What I keep coming to is the idea of someone chopping down the tree and grinding down the stump, which is a visceral horror to me. And then afterwards, the roots are still there. The evidence of this massive tree will be there for a long time to come, for anyone to see. It is not something easily undone. I think that in the reverse position here, there is not an opposite expression, but a potential to express a to embody oneself in a way that is more true to how they experience themselves on the inside. What I wonder is, where is our inner strength? What is it made of? How does it connect with our values? And how can we embody that in a way that is more true to our internal self? How can we walk through the world in a way that I keep thinking about standing firmly in front of Venus, as if she were a judge of our ideals and values and how they match up with our behavior. What could we do now in our daily life I keep losing my words. I just keep getting this image of standing in front of the most beautiful goddess we have ever seen, and how she would possibly scrutinize us and make a judgment according to how we live. If we are being true to ourselves, if we are maintaining a harmonious balance between our inner world and how we interact and engage with the world around us, are the scales balanced there? What would she see in us? Would she see someone who knows better and goes along with unjust things to stay safe? Would she see someone who struggles but does their best when faced with adversity and peer pressure to live according to their values? Would she see a massive tree who stands tall and provides shade and habitat for critters and creatures of all kinds? Or would she see a leafless tree? Perhaps someone who doesn't yet have or know their own strength. Would Venus see a ground down stump because it got too hard to try, and somewhere along the way we decided that trying wasn't worth the effort, and we let the world grind us down until we felt like all we were was a memory? I'm going to move on to the identity pattern, which is the shaman and the archetype deck. Sorry, I'm having a slow start this morning. Thank you for your patience as I look up the shaman. You may have your own idea of this archetype, and I probably have mine. So I'm going to read a tidbit from this delightfully tiny book here. It says, "The shaman can't be rushed." Much like Taurus, I like the connection there. Working with this archetype requires study and perseverance. Think of it like brining or marinating. The content must permeate every fiber of its being. When light, fearless student and practitioner. When dark, overpromises, blames, hurts self and others. This makes me think of the disconnection that I was talking about earlier between our internal sense of self and values and ideals, and how we live and express those on a day-to-day. With the Empress in reverse and the shaman right next to it, I get a sense of disconnection. I keep thinking about the potential to grow into oneself and embody the things that we truly care about in a day-to-day way. And this could look like many things. It could be cooking more for our community. It could be dressing or expressing ourselves through our appearance in a way that feels closer to our identity. It could be sitting down with people and focusing more on listening than talking, focusing more on learning about another person's experience. It could be learning in a more third house way, and I'm thinking about fundamentals of a subject. I'm thinking about community. I'm thinking about siblings. Things that may seem small to us because we are so familiar with them. Perhaps we have a lot of access to something, and it has begun to blend into the background when we could, if we want to, take more time and choose to get to know it on a deeper level. I think that whatever this invitation to embody more is, that there are many possibilities and some of them gems. Perhaps there is an aspect of ourselves that we can shed to make room for a new, bigger version of ourselves that is truer to our internal experience. I'm going to move on to the King of Wands in the reverse, also known as irascibility. And this represents the friction point or the potential shadow in this reading. King of Wands brings to mind a entertainer of sorts, someone who is action first, inclined to instinctual speech over thinking first or feeling first, someone who is a doer. Makes me think of someone who is potentially charismatic, able to direct attention, someone who can perform a role well, whether that role is earned or not. It also makes me think of someone who is more performance than sense of self, someone who might be a chameleon, blending into whatever situation they find themselves in. Someone who may crave a lot of assurance or reassurance or external validation. Could very well be money itself. Someone who is always doing and seeking and recalibrating. In the reverse position, I get someone who, at least in this spread, is not sure who they are, someone who may not know what their values are, someone who may be financially secure, but their sense of self and their values has not been developed. And this could be by choice, it could be by circumstance. There is no judgment here. I am unsure of the definition of irascibility. I get a sense of perhaps swift changing moods or reactions, at least a little bit of unpredictability, someone who shifts or changes form in some way based on where the wind blows. It makes me think, in terms of this reading, that if a person represented by the shadow card were to stand in front of Venus, she would probably side-eye him or her heavily. She would know what was up, where the disconnect is, the true depth of inner character, where someone may need to get to know their values and ideals based on who they are and their developing sense of self, instead of what pays, perhaps what their community thinks of them. In terms of this entire reading, I think, this is a very relatable spread, at least for me personally. As someone who has been the performer and been the chameleon, and been very deeply disconnected with myself because it made me feel safe in some way, I came to a point, or many points in my life, where I was called to reflect deeply and learn about what my values are exactly, and how I can develop the inner strength to embody those ideals and values on a day-to-day basis, which I am still practicing. If you are someone who finds themselves going through the motions because that is the direction of the current, and you feel I don't want to say empty per se, but it can certainly feel that way sometimes. If you feel like you are performing your life more than living it, I sympathize and I empathize with you. It can be extremely challenging to admit that things aren't quite right for us. They perhaps are candy for the community, but poison to us. It can be quite challenging to look within and determine that something very well could be different. And what is that exactly? And how do I show up as my truer self every day? There very well could be risk involved, misunderstanding, misinterpretation. It may require a different kind of performance. If you are someone who is curious about what values are exactly, I invite you to sit with yourself for a little while and mull the concept over. there's an opportunity for research and determination, a little bit of learning. And whatever conclusions that you come to, I invite you to ignore the financial implications as an experiment, a thought experiment. I do not want anyone to jeopardize their stability, family, career, if it doesn't feel right. This is just a thought experiment that I am proposing. Of course, you do what you want. I, for one, am grateful for the reminder to tune in to my inner world and re-examine my values to see if anything has changed. And the reminder to do my best moving forward to live up to those standards, so to speak. I think I am going to end the reading here with another deep breath. I invite you to, if you feel called, like, comment, or subscribe. Perhaps share this video. If you have any thoughts on something that I mentioned here, I would love to read your insights. Perhaps there is something about values I have not considered before. Perhaps there is something in this spread you can see that I did not see at this time. Whatever it is you feel called to add, I welcome that addition to our intentional community here on the channel, which you may have heard as a collective on other channels. I hope that you got something from this, something that you can use. Feel free to ignore the rest, and maybe I'll see you again on the Obsidian Mirror.